Paro had finally elicited an admission of power of Hashem, bringing him a little closer to the truth, but his going back on his word after the devastating blow of the wild animals meant that he was now to be addressed harshly. He would get one warning, and if he did nothing less than help facilitate an immediate departure of Yisrael, the plague was to hit, despite any last-minute retraction of a refusal. The stench of the dead frogs and the decomposing victims of the wild beasts would now be followed by pestilence, the logical next step in the destruction of Mitzrayim. Moshe pointed out that the horses that pulled his chariot would die, the donkeys that carried heavy loads would die, cattle that pulled heavy loads would die, goats that gave milk for young children would die. The only livestock that would be untouched would be those owned by Hebrews. Even animals owned by Hebrews grazing alongside animals owned by Mitzrites would be completely unharmed. This would be retribution for the ongoing theft of Hebrew livestock and the causing of the Hebrews to pasture flocks in faraway regions of the land, keeping them constantly separated from their families. The Mitzrites also humiliatingly harnessed Hebrews to their wagons like animals to avoid overworking their horses. Every evil, no matter how small or great, was to be returned in minute detail, but compressed in a finite amount of time. In the last days, the same thing will happen to the whole world. People, governments, societies, nations, and religions have been getting away with multitudes of evil practices for hundreds, if not thousands of years on the earth, and the lead up to Mashiach will be dealt with in the same way. Midah kineged midah, measure for measure is coming. So my advice is keep an eye out on any ultra-Orthodox Jewish communities that might be near you and build a good relationship with them. The safest place will be among a community that fears Hashem. Fleeing to a remote camp in the mountains won't save you. Making a solid effort at righteous living will be the only thing that will save you if you are unfortunate enough to live to see this great and terrible day which is to come. The timing of the plague was exactly as Moshe said, to eliminate any idea of coincidence, with it following the mass of the dead that littered the streets and fields. The next morning, a haunting howl arose from the mouth of every single dog in the land, signaling the beginning of the plague. Any animal that remained after the plague of wild beasts dropped dead where it stood. Even animals in peak condition died. By the way, the animals that pursued the Hebrews after their eventual departure came from conscripted mercenaries who Paro seduced with the remainder of his treasury. This is why each chariot contained so much wealth, because Paro paid the army in advance to enact the assault. I just thought I would mention this in case anyone was wondering. The death of the livestock also settled ownership disputes, with animals belonging to Mitzrites dropping dead and animals owned by Hebrews just carrying on like nothing was happening. Any Mitzrite that had spent significant time over their life with animals also died, including any who had relations with them died. Animals not owned but in the care of Hebrews died too. But any animal that had been agreed in principle to be bought from a Mitzrite from Hebrews was spared. The only way Mitzrayim could replenish the livestock after the plague was to buy them directly from Hebrews, which quickly made them very rich. Poor Hebrew households that owned a single underfed goat would sell it for literally any price. The tables had now firmly turned as Mitzrayim sank and the residents of Goshen prospered beyond belief. This time Paro did not attempt a negotiation with Moshe and Aaron. There was nothing to negotiate. All the animals owned by Mitzrites had died, and Paro was not immediately affected. He simply purchased animals from the Hebrews with his great wealth and ignored the suffering of his people. The middle to lower class suffered the most, and there was a growing frustration and resentment swelling among the populace at Paro's stubbornness. Some reports filtered through to Paro that some Jews were affected, with one losing his entire livestock to the pestilence, but as with this kind of news, it was devoid of the fact that the owner was not actually a Hebrew because his mother was violated by a Mitzrite in secret. Based on this false reasoning, Paro hardened his heart and still would not let Israel go. If you like the content of this channel, get a hold of this book. It is literally jam-packed with information you will not find in most Torah publications. Its pages include topics like the fable of the money-hungry Jew, the lie that propelled the Holocaust, the real root of anti-Semitism, rightly dividing Mashiach, which contains startling truths about the Messiah you will not read anywhere else, Judaism in the New Testament, updated information about the creation of the Golem and the false Messiah, the commandment to wage war, the truth about the Shield of David, a compendium of all the false teachings in the Messianic movement to help you navigate what is truth, biblical capital punishment, and why you should be frightened of sinning, the significance of the land of Israel, the obligations of the student, the eye in the triangle, sanctified sex, how to think like a Jew, and much, much more. There is also an updated chapter 1, and along with all the other chapters, has hundreds of footnotes and references. This is a book that took 10 years to research and compile, and will be a welcome addition to the library of any discerning student of Torah and Mashiach. Get it today on Amazon and other online bookstores. Bye for now.